Hump Day. Hello, hello. Welcome into KC Sports Tonight, brought to you by KCTV5 here. It's your favorite Gabe Swartz and your 17th favorite Jared Koller here, talking about a lot of things. We got some different topics on the board today, but of course we have to lead with your Super Bowl champion Chiefs because they are back to practice today with a fresh, shiny new 8-0 record coming off that Monday Night Football victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The headliner, of course, Patrick Mahomes. He practiced. He's good to go, as if there was ever any doubt. There should have been, but just for confirmation purposes, that ankle is looking strong, and Mahomes was a full participant today. So, Gabe, before we turn the page to the Broncos, your overall takeaways on the state of this Chiefs team coming out of yet another victory?
It was tighter than I thought it would be on Monday night, but that's kind of just the way that things go. It's especially when you get a team that's not very good in a primetime spot against a team that
and you don't think the Bucs are very good?
I don't think that the current version of the Bucs are very good. I think they're shorthanded, of course. So I wasn't expecting Trey Palmer and Sterling Shepard to go out there and dice up the Chiefs defense, but the Bucs actually had one of the better game plans offensively of any team that's played against the Chiefs this year. Kate Otten had great success, and the tight end issue of the Chiefs covering tight ends continued. So that was kind of to be expected because Kate
we
Otten's
talked
been
about
good.
that
Yes.
on this program.
Yep. So that didn't really surprise me. I will say though, the decision to not go for two at the end of regulation. I know that the analytics said that the go versus kick win probability difference for the Bucs was like 42.3 to 41.5%. So it was basically, to use a phrase, a coin flip of a decision of whether it would really influence the game. I just think, given how tired the Chiefs defense was, that the Bucs just had that success, and that the Chiefs, you would think you would want the game over with as fast as possible, playing at Arrowhead against Andy Reid, against Steve Spagnuolo, against Patrick Mahomes.
Well,
I was surprised that they didn't. I'm glad that the Chiefs got through it, and I'm really impressed by the biggest development of the night, which was DeAndre Hopkins being incredible.
Well, the one thing I would say for that, and I think Chiefs fans understand this, I don't know if, when it comes to national talking points around the Chiefs game, I feel like the goalposts are always moving on various narratives. With this one specifically about going for two, the difference between the Ravens game and this game was there was 30 seconds left on the clock and 3 timeouts for the Chiefs, down 1. So I still feel confident that the Chiefs then would have gone down and kicked a game-winning field goal in regulation and still won the game. So I don't think, like with the Ravens, that they gone for two, it's over because that was the end of the game.
Yeah.
So I do think that's important to note. Now, we saw the Chiefs get the ball back in that scenario, and they went 3 and out
with less urgency.
Exactly. They didn't want to turn the ball over, and they punted on 4th down instead of having 4 downs to go for it. They would have acted differently, like they did with the 13 seconds against the Bills. So I think that is important to note. I was surprised. I get it to a degree. I think you can make a case, but Todd Bowles is in the get-it-right business. Either way, it is a win, and the Chiefs are 8-0, Gabe, which 14 straight victories, obviously, but I just continue to be impressed that this team – I'm not surprised that they keep playing close games because that's just a lot of the nature of the NFL. That's not just a Chiefs thing. There's a lot of consistently close games, but what's unique to the Chiefs is that they consistently win close games. I just don't know if Chiefs fans realize how hard that is to do, and this team is doing it.
Yeah, I keep seeing things of people worried about margin of victory and seeing things like the Lions beating the Packers by multiple scores and saying that it's more impressive. Yeah, the Lions also lost to that Buccaneers team that the Chiefs beat last night.
Yeah, it's better to beat team, blow them out, and sit in the fourth quarter, sure, but it doesn't mean much.
Yeah, it doesn't mean much when you then turn around and lose games, which the Ravens have done, losing 3 games. The Bills have lost 2 games, and
even the Lions have a loss. So.
Nearly lost to the Dolphins on Sunday. So, I think that the Chiefs just keep rolling on. The thing that I think is important is that they have gotten themselves into the spot where they would have to really, really mess things up to not be the 1 seed. Specifically, if they win not this week but next week against the Bills.
Yeah, I mean
and you create that extreme gap against everybody in the AFC. So
if they were to lose to the Bills, though, then they would only need to lose one more to potentially.
Yes,
they're just the Bills won.
There's now a revisionist history of how hard the Chiefs' schedule is, and I think a lot of that has to do with the Bengals underperforming. But aside from that, you can't tell me that the Ravens are the best team, but also the Chiefs' schedule hasn't been hard, and the 49ers aren't that good.
Yeah,
it doesn't make a lot of sense. There's just a lot of delusion around it, I guess. But I think that and the fact that Hopkins, Kelsey, they are clearly both opening things up for each other, and I think that just makes it all the more likely that
having a little bit of a run game threat.
Patrick Mahomes is just getting better and better, and if the turnovers, the weird fluky tipped ball turnovers and receivers falling down as they're running routes turnovers stop happening, he's going to have more of those 3 touchdown, no interception performances. Back-to-back
games with no real Mahomes interception because the Raiders one was kind of a weird one. Still counted, of course, but I thought it was his best game, obviously, Hopkins' best game, Kelsey's best game, and I agree, Gabe. So as we turn the page to the Chiefs-Broncos game, I asked the question about the man you alluded to, one DeAndre Hopkins. This has me pretty fired up. Like, I did not, as you know, I believe I said in this program, like, my expectations weren't sky high just because we've seen other older guys come into the Chiefs offense and have their moments. My expectations were higher than they were for, like, Josh Gordon or Kelvin Benjamin or LaShawn McCoy or Le'Veon Bell, but, like, they weren't that he'd do what he did in his second game. And, I mean, I obviously was drinking the Kool-Aid before. I'm definitely drinking it now.
I mean, even if the performance was just the first touchdown in the red zone, the last touchdown in the red zone, like the crucial move the chains catch in overtime where he catches the ball, has the wherewithal to know, okay, if I shake the right direction, the defender's going to miss me and I'm going to get another 15 yards. If it was just those 3 plays, you would say, wow, what a night for DeAndre Hopkins. He's helping fix the red zone issues. He's helping the third down efficiency.
Which is the most important part.
Which is the third down efficiency and the red zone stuff. That's the way that this team is operating on the margins.
Mm-hmm.
You add in the contested catch, which is just something that we don't see in the Chiefs offense since crazily enough, Tyreek Hill catching contested catches because he, despite his size, is actually a really good contested catch guy. It is overwhelmingly encouraging sign, and that's the thing is, like, I thought Monday night was, if you just look at the totality of the performance and the cleanliness of the passing attack
in the rain.
I thought it was Mahomes' best game since the Super Bowl against the Eagles. If you just go all the way back through it from a start to finish, on his mark, on his directives. I thought he was incredible.
Complete game. That's fair. I mean, his second half against the 49ers in that Super Bowl, he was just
But he still
amazing.
opened it with a
But the
a
first
bad,
half, you're right. So
interception.
that's if you go start to finish, you might make the argument. I have to look at any of his playoff games. Like, he didn't really finish well against Baltimore.
He only had
Bills, maybe,
16 or 17 completions against the Bills. I'm just saying it was.
That's
and
I
think a lot of that
exercise.
has to do with being comfortable with Hopkins really quickly
and
getting Travis Kelce a career high 14 catches.
Yep. Well, and they're running the ball in a way that teams have to. Kareem Hunt, the first Chief running back since 2009 to have 20 carries in 4 straight games. So, like, he's legitimately the first running back that Andy Reid, since coming to town, has ran into the ground. And, like, Hunt has not had more, like, he's just getting like 4 yards a carry. It's not like he has these big long runs, but it's enough. Like, it's not even that effective, but it's enough that the defenses have to respect that it's there. That I think helps Hopkins and Kelsey. I'm not a big run the ball guy. I don't want them to, run it 25, 30 times. I don't even know if I want them to run it 20 times. But the fact that he is there without Isaiah Pacheco, because I think you'd be in a much different spot if you only had like Carson Steele and Samaje Perine. So I think that element too has really helped this offense that has me fired up. So
Kareem Hunt is not a long-term solution, but he is certainly proven to be an effective short-term solution for the Chiefs.
Yep, given the context of he was on the street, like we're grading it on a scale. Our expectations were again low, similar to how we're grading DeAndre Hopkins on a scale, whereas Travis Kelce, we expect, him to have this great day every day. It's the unfair price of doing business. Same with Mahomes.
Yep.
Like we were saying, why is Mahomes struggling? That's everything's within perspective. When Chris Jones doesn't have a sack, we're like, oh, he didn't do anything. When you look, he got triple teamed half the game or whatever. So either way, a lot more to look at as now we get ready for a Broncos game on KCTV5 on Sunday. Remember to join us for live pregame analysis from Arrowhead 10 to 11 a.m. on KCTV5 for Price Chopper Game Day, and then KC Sports Tonight in-depth analysis 10:30 Sunday night. I will see you there. Now, with the Chiefs on Monday night, with the election on Tuesday, it's been a lot going on that you might have missed, all right? So 3 topics to wrap up this show that I think are important to hit on. I should say more than 3 because the Royals, actually, there's a handful of topics. Most notably, they signed Michael Wacha to a 3-year deal, $51 million with an option that would make it 4 years, $72 million, which would, if that 4th year is exercised, would be the largest pitching contract in Royals franchise history. Kind of a big deal. But also, Bobby Witt Jr. and Seth Lugo won Gold Gloves in the last couple of days, and Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez are officially Silver Slugger nominees. We'll learn those in the coming days as well. So, just a little nuggets on the last 2 because I want to mention them in the program. But Gabe, for your purposes, Waka Waka, your initial thoughts on this pretty big signing. I think Keith Law had him as the 13th highest ranked free agent in this year's class. Royals fans probably don't look at him as a free agent because he was here last year, but
he
this
could
is a
have
big signing.
gone elsewhere, and he was actually linked to potentially going to Cleveland if he didn't stay in Kansas City. So it's kind of like a double win to keep him away from another divisional team. I thought the interesting thing is he pitched in the last game of the postseason, and in the post-game comments that night, most of his comments sounded as if he was planning to come back, and I took that as, it's this is not the time of where a player is revealing well, actually, I'm just going to go to whatever the biggest bidder is, and I'm looking to go elsewhere. And I thought, you know what? He pitched so well in the second half. If he wanted to cash in for a deal that was $20 million a year, not $17 million a year, somewhere else, it wouldn't have surprised me. So when I got the notification over the weekend that he had signed, I was relatively pleasantly surprised that it was.
And with how quick it happened, I think that.
Yes, I was just. I mean, obviously, timeline-wise, it had to have been Kansas City if it was happening now. But for him to get the notification that Kansas City was doing that, it's another sign that John Sherman's paying up for this team.
Yes,
and that's a good sign. And it makes there's less pieces to fix or to figure out from last year's roster to next year. So, and I think that most of those will just be veteran bats and just reshuffling the deck of which veteran bats are coming back for the Royals.
No, they started with the pitching there, and if you want to hear Michael Wacha's post-game comments, I tweeted that out a couple days ago. I thought that's where maybe Gabe was going, at Jared KCTV5. No, but that's where what I remembered about those comments was how kind of emotional he was, which made me think both ways about how much he shared. The tweet was saying you could tell how much he cherished his team because he got a little emotional thinking about, this is the last time I'll play with some of these guys. And I'm like, okay, that's a guy that maybe knows he probably is leaving.
Or that it was up in the air.
Right.
But he also mentioned how much work was still to be done and how the group as a whole felt like there was more to be done. And that's why I was like, I don't know if that's just talk or if it's what he truly believes. It left me confused.
That's where I think you could have spun all those comments based on either direction.
Yep.
Because you could tell how much he liked it, but you could tell the uncertainty, and that's where it stood the test of time that it was genuine then, and now it's obviously backed up by the financial support. Because as we know, in those moments you can't take players seriously. I know Michael Porter Jr., after he lost to Florida State with Mizzou in the first round of the NCAA tournament, almost told reporters that he was going to come back to school for his sophomore season despite his injured back, despite being a lottery pick even with an injured back, and he goes on to earn a max deal in the NBA. So thankfully he didn't make that decision with his heart in that moment. But I think this is a big deal, Gabe, because you saw the formula for at least this iteration of the Royals in that you had reliable pitching every day. You had 4 bona fide starters, and then when you only need to fill a 5th, that's where you can afford someone like Alec Marsh, who maybe is only good 7 out of 10 days. You can afford that when you're not counting on him to be a stopper. And it's also a position you can upgrade when a guy like Michael Wacha becomes available, or someone you call up and slide into a role. As we look into this coming year, that's where Alec Marsh is the leader. But shout out Gabe. So technical difficulties here. Thank you. Look at me, folks. Ignore the screen. But the importance now, you have Chris Bubic as well, who could be in the starting rotation. It's okay. Nice.
I just turned it off.
Chris Bubic could be in the rotation. Kyle Wright, who I don't think you should necessarily plan on, but
that's like a double
guy.
addition, because he was not there last year, but you knew he was coming back.
I would probably bank on him being, like, if he's Chris Medlin, it's a win. All right, and that's not someone you can count on for like 150 innings for the Royals fans of a decade ago that remember Chris Medlin, also from the Braves. So I think that's where this, if anything, gives you great depth. It keeps Brady Singer as your number 4 starter, which is quite a luxury, or you trade him.
Yeah, I was going to say, it might give them the green light to trade Singer for a bat.
Or trade Alec Marsh, who I think would not give you as much back as Singer, but it wouldn't be that far off because Brady Singer has 2 years of control. Alec Marsh has 4 or 5. I believe 5.
Yeah, because I don't think he pitched enough.
Yeah, and so if you love his ceiling, I think there could be something there, and maybe the Royals would be more likely to trade someone like Alec Marsh rather than Brady Singer. It all depends on the return, and, I don't know. Like, to thread a needle of making a trade that you're sending away a good player while also getting a good player back, Gabe, that's a tough needle to thread, so I don't think it's as simple as, they're going to trade Brady Singer.
Yeah, I don't think that it's a guarantee of any direction. It's just an option that is available, and the quicker that you answer the questions that the offseason provides you of, what are we doing with Wacha? Yeah. What are we doing with veteran bats? What are we doing with Brady Singer?
What are you doing with Juan Soto?
The better off, the better off that you are. Great question.
They're not signing. Well, I don't know that they're not signing Juan Soto. I would assume not, but I'm all for it.
That would
Mr.
be
Sherman.
That would be more than a pleasant surprise.
I mean, I would. That would be great. Gabe and I are willing to pitch in small amounts. I think this is most likely the biggest move of the Royals offseason, and it came on November 3rd, which is kind of crazy. But that's why I kind of wanted to give it a little bit of love here a couple days later, because I think the other thing to keep in mind is injuries are probably going to strike more this coming year than they did this past year. And that's where, if you lose Cole Reagans for 2 months, suddenly Michael Wacha is your number 2 starter, your number 3 starter. And so that's where that becomes an important addition. Whereas if you said, hey, we have Alec Marsh and now we have Chris Bubic, Singer slides up to 3, that's still a solid 5. But if any one of them goes down, then you're counting on Koller, right? You don't know what to expect, or Daniel Lynch. And so now their margin for error got greater, Gabe. And now we'll see how they can improve the offense, whether that is by trade or free agency as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yep.
All right, college football playoff rankings are the other thing that you might have missed on Tuesday night. Why they released – I guess they release it every Tuesday night going forward. I'm odd to kind of do it on election night. But Kansas State in the top 20. They are off this coming weekend. Mizzou in the top 25, which kind of surprised me because they dropped out of the AP top 25 poll. They are at home against Oklahoma this weekend. Gabe, not necessarily on the games this weekend, but these rankings. These are why it's significant. This is the first ranking. So, this is the starting point for teams. So now we see where Mizzou and Kansas State work from if they want to get into the top 12, kind of their starting point. And it's around where I assumed, but your thoughts on it?
My thoughts on it, I think that K-State is probably in the right area, given that they have 2 losses and that one of them is to a not very good Houston team. I actually think they probably did well with 19.
Yeah,
I think Mizzou also did well to be at 24 because the resume doesn't necessarily line up with the typical impressiveness of what you would, or the respect that you would typically expect an SEC team to get for being 6-2. But it lines up with the fact that they barely beat Auburn. I know that that's largely because of the Brady Cook injury, that they got steamrolled in their two biggest games by A&M and Alabama, and that their best non-conference win is Boston College, which is getting worse by the week.
Yeah, the win over Vanderbilt's probably their best
win. The win over
Vandy
is probably their best win, and that is kind of
odd to say.
Very odd to say, yes, I would agree.
But I think that shows because the Auburn game without Brady Cook, you said, but also the Alabama game, it was 6-0 before Brady Cook went down. I think they're saying, but that only works to a point. Like, if Drew Pine goes out and loses, is the starting quarterback against Oklahoma and they lose, it's not like Mizzou's going to stay there and be like, well, if they had Brady Cook. Like, no, I think that gives them a little bit of an edge, which I think is understandable to a degree. But now going forward, it's about, if Mizzou has any chance of getting college football playoff, they cannot lose again, and they need a little help.
I think
so does Kansas State.
Neither of them can lose the rest of the way if they want to get in.
Yeah.
Mizzou winning out is probably not getting them into the SEC championship game, which means what they're ending up in is the first ever debate of what do we think 10 through 12 or 9 through 11 should be, if 12 is going to be the highest ranked group of 5 team, probably like a Boise State.
There's a path,
which
but
it could happen. I just think if Mizzou somehow gets to that spot, which I don't think is likely, then what you bring back up is the thumping at A&M and the thumping at Bama, and people would say, do we really need to see this team play another elite team?
I think
that would be the argument.
The Cook element not at Alabama
is a little bit of a saving grace, yeah.
Right. But I think that's their only, because if Cook had played that whole game, which it's almost a blessing that maybe he did get out of there. If they would have kept it, that's the other thing. If Mizzou lost by 6 to Alabama, be a totally different conversation. So it kind of goes both ways.
Exactly.
I did going through. Full disclosure, I root for KUMU and K-State. I'm weird, but I also did go to Mizzou, so I do root for Mizzou legitimately. So I went in and did I looked at every team's schedule that's ahead of Mizzou and went the path because I didn't know how many conflicting.
This is quite an exercise.
Results, because one of the weird toss-up games is LSU against Alabama. I was like, okay, who should Mizzou root for in that case? And basically, there is a path that, let's see, we're 10 out of 12 things, 10 out of 12 needs to happen.
So what
there's
you're saying
a little
is
margin for error, but none.
For people who don't wager on things, a 12-team parlay would probably, of things that are essentially coin flips, would probably pay out somewhere around 100,000 to 1. So
okay,
very unlikely.
I wouldn't go that far. I would
very
not go that
unlikely.
Far. It's they're not coin flips because a lot of them are I tried to not have K and obvious loss. So Tennessee in this case, in order for Mizzou to pass them, they would need to lose at Georgia, at Vanderbilt. Is that likely? No, but that's not crazy.
The Georgia
to think
game's not unlikely, but the Vandy game would be.
It'd be a surprise, but Vandy's not a bad team, so it's but that's to pass Tennessee. Okay, you cross that off. Tennessee is the long shot, but then Alabama losing at LSU. Okay,
that's a coin flip. I
possible,
think this weekend.
Right. Texas A&M lose at Texas. Okay, that's possible.
Very possible.
The LSU one, if LSU beats Alabama, then they would need to lose at Florida or versus Vanderbilt or versus Oklahoma. They'd be favoring all of those, but LSU could. So and I didn't think I'd be running through all this on TV, but just as an example.
I think the only to go to K-State's point though, K-State's only hope is probably to win the Big 12.
Yes,
I don't think that K-State with the loss to Houston is getting into the college football playoff as an at-large. The only Big 12 team that I think can get into the college football playoff as an at-large is honestly Colorado, and I honestly think that's a large point. No, I think BYU is going to need to be a one-loss team or win the conference championship because BYU clearly didn't get the respect that it deserves yesterday when they got ranked behind Penn State and it got ranked behind Indiana, despite the fact that the only game that BYU hasn't absolutely thumped whoever they've played was when they played Oklahoma State in a weird Friday night game.
Yes.
So the Big 12 is already being slightly
I wonder how much of that is
disrespected.
a prove it thing. BYU will get moved up in the rankings if they keep winning.
Will they? Penn State never wins big games, and they just
No,
consistently get ranked 7th
fair.
or 8th in the country.
Either way, I think they're for. I did this point for Mizzou, and it again to show you the long shot. Like it goes down. Like there's a lot more that needs to happen than just what I said. But it applies to Kansas State too. Like
I need a
if those
flow
things,
chart. I need you to flow chart.
I should
this.
have. I just did this for fun, which shows you how much of a degenerate I am. But I should have put it together in more speaking terms for television or online purposes. But it isn't like because Ole Miss lose against Georgia, Clemson lose against South Carolina or Pitt. It's like okay, all these things can happen. And so if these things do happen, moral of the story: Kansas State and Mizzou.
They have chances.
They have small chances, but they're not completely out of it, which is a little bit lower than what we expected going into the year, I would say. But it's still 2 top 25 local teams that have not collapsed like a Kansas program has that also had high expectations. And we're at least in November with them having a beating heart for at least a good season, a good bowl game, and potentially, if things go right, have it be even more interesting as the season goes on, which I think a lot of Kansas State and Mizzou fans would take. And it's the beauty of the college football playoff where we're still talking about if there's only 4 teams, guess what? Both these teams would be out of it. So
the crazy thing about K-State's end of schedule is what we thought was the tough part of their schedule of Arizona, Oklahoma State, and Kansas at the start has turned into being the easier part because those teams have been not very good, and now they have 3 teams in ASU, Cincinnati, and Iowa State who everybody thought were going to be not very good.
I thought Iowa State would be all right, but maybe not at this point.
Like middle of the pack. Now they're the second best team in the Big 12. So,
but I mean, they lost. That game maybe looks a little bit more. But I don't know that game.
I'll be in Manhattan next Saturday.
Ooh. So when you see Gabe Swartz, be like, "Hey, I recognize you. You look taller in person." I don't know or shorter.
No.
These boxes, like, do they make us look tall, short? What are we thinking? I don't know. You can't ever see our legs.
I don't know.
Gabe is wearing shorts right now, which is a bold move considering how cold it is outside. All right, we have. I've not done a good job on managing the clock here. Shout out Todd Haley. So we do want to end, though, with just a little current shout out because, Gabe, the Kansas City Current are taking on the North Carolina Courage Saturday, 11 a.m. in the NWSL quarterfinal playoffs at CPKC Stadium. First ever playoff match on the river here in Kansas City for a team that missed the playoffs last year but went all the way to the final the year before that. So they have a little bit of history, although it's almost entirely a new team. They got so many different players, different head coach, of course. But it's exciting to look forward to this Saturday match you can catch here on KCTV5. Gabe, how fired up are you?
I'm very excited to see them take advantage of a great regular season and a great MVP campaign of their own. So we'll see what happens with the playoffs, and soccer is a little different than everybody else in terms of just kind of